Hi, this is Brennan Davis from Bedrock Games and the Bedrock blog, and I'm doing a Q&A today. I may do some updates after as well. I'm going to try to be a bit quick. I was asked who would be the provincial governor of Daozhou. Daozhou is a prefecture of the Jiandao Empire, and in the core book, the prefectures are listed, but it doesn't say who's in charge of each one. I think it might mention one of them, but I can't remember. And some of them are addressed in other books. But in the Sons of Lady 87 book, in Appendix F, there's a section called The Empire, and I provide a little cheat sheet that I was using in my campaigns. It's not canon because the cheat sheet itself is based on what was going on in my campaigns, but I tried to make it as, I adjusted it so that it was as close as I could remember to what should be core, because my campaign has kind of moved away a little bit from the standard core rulebook. But either way, it provides kind of I think a good way for breaking this stuff down. And the answer on the sheet is that the prefect is Panshisan, and so there's a whole list of them. It gives like who's the ruler of the empire. Then it gives each of the prefectures and who's in charge of it. And so that is something that you can use if one of the prefectures comes up and you don't have like anything prepared, or you just want to know, this isn't official, but if you want some kind of an official name, there you go. It's, I think, on page 179 or 178 of the Sons of Lady 87 book. I did put it in our Discord in the Wandering Heroes of Ogre section, so if you just go to the Bedrock Games Discord, you'll find it. But it's in the Sons of Lady 87 book. That appendix has a lot of stuff like that, so I'd definitely encourage people, if you pick up the Sons of Lady 87, go and check out the appendix, because there's some useful information in there. And so I think I answered a number of questions the other day, and so I'm going to be doing more of these Q&As, so definitely send me more questions. If you don't hear back after sending a question, send it again, just in case I need to be reminded or it didn't go through. Normally I try to assemble a bunch of questions and answer them, but today I thought that this was kind of a thing that I just wanted to highlight anyways, so I thought it would be useful. And for those who don't know, the Sons of Lady 87 is a campaign book. It's basically like a sandbox adventure, but it's also just really kind of a setting supplement. So it's got all the information on the Fanju prefecture. So and I also wanted to say I am currently working on a document. Now, I don't want to give people the wrong impression. I'm not saying that I'm going to make a book out of this or anything, but I'm working on a document which could end up just being a blog entry. It could end up being something I put into the Discord. I haven't decided. Maybe if I have enough material, I'll consider putting it out as a PDF for a book, but that's definitely sort of a more remote possibility. Right now, I'm just creating this for my own personal campaigns. I've been having I've been thinking more and more about the Profound Masters book, and one of the reasons why I didn't had trouble going back to it was those weren't levels that I was particularly interested in. Once the game was like 3 years in, like initially when I first started the Profound book, I had campaigns that were set in the Profound Master stage, and I was working on the techniques and everything. But then when I sort of went back and just kind of, I generally run Ogre as Wuxia. I like Wuxia. That's sort of my comfort zone. When I went back and just started running it that way, I was too disconnected from that power level, and I just had trouble kind of reconnecting with the material. Also, there was a lot of lore, and so I found it frustrating. But what I've been doing is I've been reviewing the lore. I've been running a campaign that started out as sort of a Condor Heroes campaign, but now it's kind of become a Zoo Warriors type of campaign where, and I have 2 of them that are ongoing, but I've basically accelerated the rate of progression. And so I think we're about 15 sessions in, and in one of the games, one of my players is like Chi rank 8 or 9, maybe I think 8 or 9 is the highest. And in the other campaign, they're all 6, but they're about to break through to the Profound Master stage. And so the reason I'm doing is, number one, I wanted to run these campaigns. I was rereading Condor Heroes, and it kind of inspired me to do this. And but then I I was also thinking a lot about the immortal levels and how that would actually function, and so I wanted to run 2 campaigns where I would just kind of have to encounter all the, like when you're making a setting or developing anything like this, you start running it into whatever it is you're trying to do, and then you start encountering all the problems that you didn't foresee. And some of these I remember because, again, like I said, when we first made the Profound book, I was running campaigns at that level. But now I'm even sort of thinking beyond the Profound and Immortal levels and into the God levels. And I'm also thinking more about the cosmology and how all this makes sense within it. I mean, I think the cosmology does make sense, but it's a fantasy world, so there's a certain amount of contradiction. And I'm also bringing a little bit more of my own understanding to the material. I don't really talk about this that much, but I spent a number of years when I was younger. There's a Theravada Buddhist temple, a Cambodian temple in the town that I was living in, and I went there and I learned how to meditate, and I started learning about Buddhism. And my wife is Buddhist, so we go to a lot of Buddhist temples. I've read the Tripitaka and all these other scriptures and things, and my wife was always giving me like Dharma texts and stuff, and so I've always had an interest in it. I've always had an interest in martial arts and things like that, and so I realized, I can bring a little bit I can bring a little bit more of myself into some of this, if that makes sense, which is what I'm trying to do. And so that's sort of a long preamble to say what I've been doing is, if anybody's ever seen the movie New Dragon Gate Inn, it's kind of a remake or maybe a sequel or maybe just a reboot. The terminology is a little hard to apply, but of the original Dragon Inn movie, or the Dragon Gate Inn, whatever you want to call it, and it's almost more of like a spiritual sequel. So it's New Dragon Gate Inn or New Dragon Inn, or it has different titles. And so I thought, well, I'll kind of do something similar where I'm going to do New Profound Masters of Ogre. Again, just a document, and I'm going to do it the way I want to do it in the present moment. So this is really like it's going to be. What I'm working on is compatible with the core book, but there will be places where I'm making adjustments because there are either things I don't like, or the things I moved away from, or there are new ideas I want to explore in a different way. And so what I've been doing so far, my main thing, and I'm still not quite done with this, and this was the big hurdle, so this will really determine whether this can in fact be done, because this isn't like a light matter. This is something that, I could go through it and I could fill it up, but I want to fill it up in a way that that adds to the game, that that works. But in the Wandering Heroes of Ogre Gate rulebook, there are these things called insights, and the insights, they're kind of like enlightenment moments, or moments of like awakening different levels of awareness as you progress up the immortal levels. You can only get 4, and you're not even guaranteed to get 4, and it's random. You have to make a meditation roll. You got to make 1 every level. And then if you succeed, you roll on 1 d10 table, and if you get a total success, you roll on another d10 table. And in the core book, there's just 1 table with 2 tiers like that, and that one's kind of a little bit generic. It can apply to all different sort of paths to immortality and godhood. But where I started running into problems with it was when I was dealing with Henshi, and Henshi has a much different overall governing philosophy. There's almost a different cosmology inside of Henshi that I have to sort of reconcile with the rest of the setting. And so I started creating one for Henshi, and then I started creating one for Yen Li, and then I started creating one for Tehua, and another one for Sun Mai. I may make more. I want to encourage GMs to make more. I think that the idea of having multiple paths to immortality like this will work. And for each one, I came up with a chi ritual that's sort of part of the process, and a profound technique that's part of the process. And so as of now, I finished the Henshi table. I quite like it too. I have to adjust some things. There's a couple in there that I want to tweak. They need to be thoroughly play tested. I started the Yen Li table, which I have a sense of where that's going. The one that surprised me was Dahua, because that was the one I struggled with the most in terms of understanding how it would work. But I realized a couple of days ago where Dahua would fit into all this, and so that's actually becoming my favorite. And Sun Mai, I want to get Jeremy's input, because Sun Mai is a character that he Sun Mai was made in the core book, but he wasn't really much beyond this ancient figure that existed in the past and was the founder of the Qi Zhao movement. And so Jeremy really turned him into a character in the Legends of Ogre book, and took him through a whole journey. And there's things from that I want to make sure that I'm not excluding from this table. And so, in addition to that, I've been sort of creating an introductory section of that's really more than anything kind of a reminder to myself of how I want to be. Whenever I set about doing anything, I almost have like a mission statement for myself of like what I think is going to be gameable as a campaign. And so that's kind of what I've been doing as well. And I've been rethinking how immortality works. One thing I'm going to do, and people don't have to adopt this if I do put it out on the blog, or even if I do release it as a book, it's not like it's etched in stone, because again, it's new Profound Masters of Ogre. But in the old core book, there was a list of a bunch of things you had to do to become immortal, and a number of them I wasn't like. One of them is you have to perform a great deed, which I don't really like that one. There's a couple of other on there that I'm not too keen on, and so really the main things that I'm going to include, I might add one or two more things, but the main things are finding a path and appropriate cultivation or enlightenment method to achieve immortality. So that's the real central thing, and that can be following Henshi and abiding by the teachings of Henshi. It can be, Yenli alchemy. It can be, the scholasticism of the Dahuans, or the mysticism of Sun Mai. And again, there would be others too, because there's also demon heroes and all that. Though, not all demon heroes. Some demon heroes became immortal by this route and then went south. So the other one is they have to confront their fated calamity. Now, this was one that I was always sort of struggling with as well, because making it gameable was the problem. It's a trope. But then when I realized how it connected more with Henshi and Karma, I thought it would work better. So, and so I have these the rebirth cycle tables, and those are really the things that determine what your fated calamity is going to be. And it's basically a difficulty or challenge that could result in your death, like a tribulation or a calamity that originates from your bad karma. So it originates from your karma. So it's a retribution for a misdeed you've committed in a previous life. And I like that. I think that, and again, that's not anything. I'm not reinventing anything there. That's very within genre. But the old way that it was explained, it didn't thread as well. And so the way that I have it set up now, it threads much better, I think. And the idea is basically a big adventure is going to come to the players. They're going to have a significant encounter that will be part of this process. And once you get through it, then you've kind of reconciled with your karma, and you can advance. So that's sort of the idea. And there'll be more to it than that, but that's sort of the basics. And of course, you have to be Chi rank 13 to become an immortal. But I'm also thinking a lot more about the bureaucracy of heaven and how that operates, and how that can be sort of gamified, because one of the challenges when you're dealing with these kinds of higher level things is the gameability. And so again, I think my method is to kind of just take a nod from like a lot of the genre material, and have a lot of the same kind of petty concerns still remaining a factor in the celestial realms. They still have the same amount of politicking and bickering. They have the same institutions and structures, so it's really quite similar to how things would be down, in the world of man. So that was the idea. I'm still working through it, and I still have to kind of, and again, I should say this isn't because this comes up a bit. This is not a Shan Shah, um, not a Shan Shah supplement. I don't want to use the word supplement because I'm just making a document, but it's not a Shan Shah thing. That's a much bigger scope. This is more in line with like what you might call proto Shan Shah. I don't know. There's probably a better term than that, but like the Zoo Warriors from the Magic Mountain, stuff like that. Journey to the West. Various myths and legend, and other types of movies, but not this stuff that sort of emerged from the web novel Shan Shah genre. Because there's things that are in those that this is not going to have, and so I just don't want people to be expecting that and not get that. You need a much higher, like even like I don't know what the power level is. Like I'm contemplating statting out all the gods. Because in order for it to be gameable, you'd have to be able to fight the gods sometime. Like the idea that the players might, rebel against the enlightened goddess, so they might be appointed her warriors and have to go deal with some god that's causing a problem. You need to have their stats for that. And in terms of scale, right now, and this is very flexible, because this is what I was originally had in my head, if I remember. I have to look at the Supreme Judge Yu entry in the book. That'll be my big measure of where the power levels are. Like that's sort of like an important sort of point of reference. But I'm thinking like 1 through like up to 100. So like maybe the enlightened goddess is 100. The only problem with that, like if I want to be like true to the cosmology, I might have to go beyond that, because the whole concept in the setting is that everything in this world is stuff that she's created, and it's done by dividing herself into smaller and smaller pieces. And so presumably there's still a great deal of her remaining. So maybe it needs to be 1,000 she ranks, but let's say it's 100 for right now. That I think would be very doable. You have the enlightened goddess at 100 she ranks, and then it makes it feasible that that the players could either present a challenge to her or be her allies or whatever. She's not invulnerable, so that allows for the possibility of change that could be needed to make campaigns functional. I'm still thinking this all over, but those are my initial thoughts. And again, I have to emphasize, this is a document. This is not my plan to put out a book. Because if I did want to put a book, I'd also have to think about like the funding and all that, and I don't know that I have the funding for a full release with this. But also I'd have to, this is also going to be a lot of work, because, like for example, in my campaign, the players just joined an immortal sect, and I thought I had information on that sect in my. There's stuff that's in the old Profound book that I didn't put up on the blog, because it wasn't all in working order, in my opinion. But one of the sects that's in there is only mentioned briefly, and then every other reference to them, including the leader of their sect, is in passing. And so during the game, I kind of had to come up with all this material about them on the fly, which was good. It's sometimes good to have those kind of in-pressure moments to develop things. But I'm going to have to start doing that for all of the different realms and everything. So it's gonna be an ongoing process. I don't know how long it's going to take, but I'll make what I can make. I'm not making any promises that this is going to be a massive tome. It might just be a small blog entry or something. But what I can say is that even looking at it now, there's plenty of gameable material in there. So whatever comes of this, it'll at least give people something that they can use. But I would like if I can, like right now I have 6,000 words almost. I got 5,623 words. So, that's not too bad of a start. It's pretty easy though to start the writing process. It's when you get into like the 20 to 40,000 word zone. That's when you start to really, that's what determines if you really have enough material. But again, this is all going to be sort of based on as needed. So I find that generally produces much better content anyways. So that's all I had to say. I have to go and drink my coffee so that I can continue I have to reread some of the old Ogre stuff Which, by the way, I hate reading my own books because number one, the Ogre is a very wordy book, so it just takes a long time. Sometimes I read it, I'm like, oh, like I kind of like how I phrase that or whatever. But a lot of the time you're reading it, and you're like, oh, there's a mistake. Oh, there's something I could have worded differently. Oh, there's a concept that I think either I didn't clearly convey or I confused with another like you just notice things. And I think Ogre overall is in good shape, but it's just very unpleasant. Like there's a period of time when the book is first written where you don't mind going back and rereading it, but then years later when you go back and reread them, it's kind of painful. And that happens with every book. I don't think I've ever written a book where I've gone back and not had that experience. It's just the nature of it. Because even if it's not like an issue that another person might have any problem with, I see it and it's like, why did I phrase it that way? Like you're looking, like even things like as mistakes and all that stuff aside, which there are plenty, you're looking at a sentence and you're like, why is it flowing that way? I don't like. There's something about it that bugs me. So but what I'm doing is I'm taking a black pen to Ogre too as I go through it, and I'm hoping to have some errata as well, because I've never released errata as far as I can remember, and I probably should put some out there. So anyways, I will let you go, and until next time, I will talk to you later.